Do you have a pension coming to you when you retire? Most of corporate America has done away with pensions, but there are companies out there that still provide a pension. Been counseling people for my 30-year career on their pension planning decisions. If you're a municipal worker, a federal worker, you probably still have pensions. And you need to understand your options, and you want to make sure you do your homework as early as possible. Let me start out first and foremost by telling you that all pension planning decisions revolve around life insurance and annuities. That's how they're funded, plain and simple. Whether the company's doing it, the government's doing it, they're using these calculations. And I'm going to show you the best way to maintain control of your money throughout the pension planning process. So let me try and break this down for you in what I call on this episode, pension maximization. But before I get started, make sure you like, share, and subscribe as we're doing multiple episodes here, and I want you to keep learning more about your insurance planning needs. So what is pension maximization? Employee of a company is going to be offered a monthly pension when they get ready to retire. And in doing so, they're going to have to pick survivor benefits for their spouse or significant other. Now, obviously, if you're single, you could shut off this episode and go on to the next episode. But if you've got a significant other that you need to make pension planning decisions about, you're going to want to watch this full episode. So there's basically, in my experience, usually 3 levels of options, and I've labeled them A, B, and C. So let's just say in this particular case, we have John and his wife, Mary, and John's benefit is $5,000 a month. That's going to be his pension, $60,000 a year. Now, option A, he keeps the full amount. There's no reduction of the $5,000. He gets 100% of his pension as long as he's alive. But wait, when he dies, the money stops. So as I go across here, this is the reduction. This is the benefit to the person with the pension. And then this is what the surviving spouse or significant other is going to receive. This is not a good thing for Mary. Mary's not going to be happy with decision A. So most people rarely take A, but I'm going to show you why you might want to take A. They go back. Now they have option B. B is a 10% reduction of the pension benefit. So that $5,000 now gets reduced to $4,500. 10% comes out for the rest of his life. So as long as he's alive, John's going to get $4,500 a month paid to him. Now, the B, 10%, usually has a 50% survivor benefit, which means Mary's going to get $2,250. Now, again, I don't know Mary's appetite. I don't know how much other assets they have available, but this is the key in understanding your whole financial planning picture. Can Mary afford to live on $2,250 once John's passed away, having that pension income cut in half? Only they know through their financial planning process. But let's just say no, they're not something that they can afford to take that decision on. So now they have the third option, and that's option C. And that's a 20% reduction. So now instead of $5,000 or $4,500, this now goes down to $4,000. So as long as John's alive, he's going to get $4,000 for the rest of his life. And when John dies, well, what does Mary get? She gets 100% survivor benefit. She gets the same $4,000. Is $4,000 better than $22,500? Significantly. So as long as John's alive, they get $4,000. When John's gone, Mary still gets the same $4,000. The household income stays about the same. I would tell you that about 80% of all families historically have selected option C because it gives the surviving spouse, and again, I'm going back historically, male, female, it's the husband's pension. Men are predeceasing women. Women live longer. So it makes sense in these scenarios. Most men marry a woman a few years younger than them, and then they're going to live longer than them. And again, go look at the senior facilities of how many women are there compared to men. So women are going to outlive the men, and they're going to want to make sure that they're taken care of financially. So when I say this is about control, what I want to talk about in pension maximization is how can you utilize life insurance no differently than what your company is doing for you and put yourself in better control. So stay with me. This is going to get a little bit more elongated. I need more paper. So what's going to happen now is we're going to sit down with you and we're going to calculate exactly what is required to get Mary, your spouse, your significant other, that $4,000. So when I said earlier that pension maximization is around life insurance and annuity calculations, well, what exactly was that $4,000 Mary was getting? That's an annuity calculation of a lump sum that has to be put in place to protect that surviving spouse. We need to give John his money, and then we need to give Mary her money. So anything in that regard, when you're dealing with lump sums of money, is an annuity calculation, because I need to break that down into lifetime income. That's an annuity. How are the companies doing it? Well, again, depending on the size of the company, they might self-insure, but ultimately they're purchasing a life insurance policy to create the asset to purchase the annuity. So my challenge is, can you do that yourself, and how can you be in better control? Ultimately, at the end of this, it's going to be a little bit lengthy, so stay with me here, is we have three scenarios. John dying first, Mary dying first, and both tragically dying together. And what happens in these scenarios between the A, the B, and the C is where you're going to maintain your control. So now, if John dies first, we have scenario A, B, and C. Martha, you staying with me? If John dies first in A, what happens to the money? Money stops. John's gone. There's no survivor benefit to Mary. If Mary dies first, what happens to John? Well, John's getting the same $5,000, isn't he? Yes. So in taking A, Mary's gone. John gets the $5,000 the rest of his life. So that's a big plus. John dying first, that's a negative. Okay, so we got a check mark and a negative. What happens if they both die together? What happens if they're out traveling, they're in their Winnebago, and something happens and they perish and the revenue stops? That $5,000, that's 60 grand a year. He was 65 years of age, probably going to live 20 plus more years. This is multiple millions of dollars that has suddenly stopped. There's no more money coming in. This is a massive negative to the household. So a lot of money was due to that pension. So if you take option A and these three scenarios play out, only one is really a positive, and that's if Mary actually passed away before John. Let's go to option B. Option B, if John dies first, what happens? Well, as long as he's alive, he's getting his $4,500. John dies, Mary is going to continue to get $2,250. As we said, she's going to get half. But what happens if Mary dies first? Well, John has elected to take $4,500. He's given up the $500 month after month after month for all those years because Mary predeceased him. Again, they both die together, the money stops. So negative here, negative here. Well, this kind of did what it did. Half of the income for Mary. Option C, well, what happens? John gets $4,000 while he's alive. John dies. Mary gets her $4,000. So that's a win. So C, John dying first, that works. That's why we had that in place. But what happens if Mary dies first? No different between A and B. John was giving up $1,000 a month now to protect Mary. This is $12,000 a year for a 65-year-old who's going to last hopefully another 20 years. $12,000 a year times 20, that's over $250,000 that he's foregone to protect his wife that unfortunately predeceased him. That's a massive negative here. And again, if they both die together in a very short amount of time, what happens? The money stops. What we're going to propose to you is you buying your own life insurance policy with somewhere between the $500 and $1,000 a month you'd be giving up to the company. That's why it's imperative that you look at this early on in your planning process. Make sure you're insurable, hopefully a non-smoker, not a lot of medical challenges, cancer survivors, diabetics. That's going to pose some challenges, and that's why the company options are available. But if you're in fine shape, healthy shape, no big pre-existing conditions, I'd be comfortable saying that you can fund your own private policy for less than that $1,000. So what happens now if you do D, which is private life insurance? My notes are getting hairy here. If I have a private life insurance, I'm telling you to go buy A, take the full benefit, and instead of giving the company the $1,000, you're going to buy your own private life insurance. What if it's less than $1,000, Martha? What if it's only $800 a month? What if it's $600 a month? What if you're in super fine shape and it's even less than that? You just put more money in your cash flow throughout your retirement years. Let's play through John dying first, Mary dying first, both dying together scenarios if we have our own private life insurance called pension maximization. We're taking A. We're going to, instead of giving the pension company your job, instead of giving them the $1,000, we're going to maintain control of that $1,000. We're going to buy our own insurance policy. We're going to send a check to them. We have this lump sum of money sitting in a life insurance policy, sitting in your vault, in your safe. What happens now? John dies first. John's pension check stops coming in. Mary goes to the vault. Mary pulls out the life insurance policy, gives me a call. We cash in the policy, lump sum of money. We convert it into an annuity. Voila, here's her $4,000 to $5,000 a month, depending on what we calculated for. Depends how much life insurance we bought. We want to give her at least the $4,000 that he would have been giving up. Maybe we can give her more. Depends what they want to buy. So taking care of Mary, having your own private life insurance when John dies first, big plus mark. We'll make this one green, okay? Big green plus mark. But here's where it gets interesting. If Mary dies first, under the company scenarios, there was no retroactive, there's no refund of money. John's stuck getting $4,500 or even $4,000 a month for the rest of his life because most companies don't offer a rollback or a popback. Some do, which means he could go back to the $5,000, but a lot of them don't. On top of which, if they're 20 years into retirement, he's not getting a check for the 20 years that he gave up that $1,000 a month. He's out that $240,000. However, if he has his own private policy, he's been building up what? Cash value. As time goes by, there's more and more cash in that policy. If it's $1, is that more money that he would have gotten if he had done the company scenario? Sure. So if Mary dies first and you have a private policy, you have two choices. You can keep the policy and leave the same death benefit to your kids now, your heirs, or you could cash out the policy, no more premiums, you go back to $5,000 a month, and then you get that cash value refunded back to you. That's your capital that comes back to you, whereas if you did it through the company options, you don't get that money. Again, the key word here I'm saying is control. You're controlling the flow of the money. Let's go to the last scenario before we wrap this up. What happens when you both die together after a very short amount of time? This is somebody who is supposed to get $60,000 a year for 25 years life expectancy, $1.5 million. His first week in retirement, they both perish in a nasty Winnebago accident. Does the company keep sending checks to the kids? No, they do not. It goes away when the pensioner passes away. But the kids pull out their safe deposit box and they go through the family's affairs and they see that there's this life insurance policy that's leaving money to Mary. Well, Mary's not here anymore. What happens? Well, there's something on the policy called what? Contingent beneficiaries. Your kids, your nieces, your nephews, your charity, your dog, your cat, whatever it is. Somebody can get that money. May not be $1.5 million. It might be $500,000. It might be $1 million. I don't know what it's going to be. But in my scenario, under the private planning side, somebody's going to get a check for all the unpaid pension dollars that should have been paid out. If you die in that scenario under the company plan, that money's gone forever. This is why I think private pension planning using pension maximization strategies is key to anybody with a pension. Teachers, municipal workers, federal workers, they all still get pensions. They need to know these options and they need to do this planning as fast as possible. If you're in corporate America and you still get a pension, you need to know your options here as well. I hope this wasn't too confusing. I hope you're able to follow my logic. I'm sure you might have questions. Again, I can't tell you what to do. I don't know your scenario. This is to give you a foundation of education and more financial literacy. That's my goal here at Ask the Plan Man. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Join me next episode. We're going to break down more advanced techniques using life insurance. I'm your host, Bruce Weinstein. Come hit me up at asktheplanman.com, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.